to be about that relationship, right? So all those fancy trainings, all the stuff I did, this is what I know, get in their space and face and no freebies. Early on, so here I am, I'm mom, I have milk, bottle, you know, right here. And hi, sweetie, there you are, now we drink. Like that kind of thing. I mean, seriously, from a 15-month-old I've had diagnosed, and people are like, how do you know at 15 months? I'm like, take a look at this kiddo. He absolutely, totally aloof. I either hear really good baby or really bad. Really good makes me worry too, because they don't cry if they're wet. They don't let you know their needs. So I'm like, oh no, because I want to know. I want that screaming, ticked off kid. And I'm like, oh, and really colicky. You know, I feel like a little bit more able to handle that, because there's things we can do to calm mom, to, you know, help them look at the milk, look at all these different things. I've had to do a couple negative aversive plans that sound terrible on a 6-month-old. I had a little baby one time, diagnosis of we didn't know what was going on, 6 months old, adopted from an orphanage, puking up its milk, or her milk, after she was receiving it. And so we did a little bit of lemon juice on the tongue right when she'd start the lip smacking movements that led to the vomiting and the regurgitation and the upheaval. So she'd go, and I'd go, and I'm like, sorry. A 6 months old little baby, we were just getting ready to put a stomach tube in, because she weighed like 7 pounds, 12 ounces at 6 months. And that lemon was just enough to make her stop the lip smacking, which stopped the ruminating, which stopped the puking. So there was some sort of classically conditioned, doctor called me in on that. But that, you know, you just look at all this stuff. What's the functional behavior? How is that kiddo now? A kiddo, by the way, now is 28 years old, doing great. The child may seem not to want to be held, although I had one mom tell me, I thought it was postpartum. He rolled out of his swaddle at 3 days old. Shauna, there is no humanly way that tiny little infant should have been able to get on, you know, have the motor ability to roll out of a swaddle. He started at this end of the bassinet and ended up at this end. I called my mother-in-law in to make sure I was not losing my cookies and was in the midst of postpartum. He was a little boy with autism, actually sensory processing disorder later. He never got autism, but he rolled himself out of that swaddle at 3 days of age. Unreal. So, seems to tune out a lot, may not be aware of what's happening around them. They don't like things that aren't routine, unpredictable, flexible schedules. So for my older kids, I do FMs all the time. Flexible moment. This will be a flexible moment. We're not sure why the snow's flying in sideways in the barn. It's a flexible moment because it's flying in sideways. I mean, all these, and I just call them FMs, and the kids know that they need to I hate flight FMs. I have kids who write social stories over them, all of them, but they like the, you know, the routineness, rigidity. You can also teach through that when they have it, because you can say, it's just like da-da-da-da-da, and you can really kind of redirect them through routines at times too. Splinter skills, they can do, you know, they know 8th grade geography, but we're still working on 1+1. That kind of stuff, they'll show like variant skill levels. High and appropriate tolerance for pain, sometimes don't have reflexes if they fall. Important for respite people to know. May not be able to imitate the play of others. Her very good description of the 3 types of play. They may not be able to parallel. They may not reference those mirror neurons, she called them, might not be present. So really get in there with them so they can see you more. It might be more of a distance thing. A lot of my kids have visual processing issues. Watch for that too. May experience extreme, oh yeah, I forgot to plug this in. Sensory sensitivity, sounds we may not hear as loud are very loud to them, and just be very aware. All this stuff, this is why sensory processing disorder and autism are so commonly co-occurring, is because almost every single one of these things I just said to you can also be put into as a sensory processing disorder moment, right? So just keep an eyeball on what's causing it to happen, like those sheets. This is when I first wrote the paper when I was 15 years old. I think it was, oh boy, I think it was 1 to 3 in every 100,000 probably then. It was in 1997, it was 1 to 3 people in 10,000, and now it's 1 in 59. It's 1 in 41 boys. no cause, no cure still. They think it's a protein peptide on gene number 1 that's coded on, I can't remember. That's where they're at, but that's genetic mutation, so we just have to think about that. 5 boys diagnosed for every 1 girl, same thing with ADHD. 5 boys diagnosed for every 1 girl with this. So, trauma. Here's Tina. Uh-oh, she wasn't ready.
I didn't know it was next. So I'm just going to give you a really quick overview of somebody with post-traumatic stress disorder. It's an anxiety disorder. So some people have anxiety and they have some of these symptoms, but people with PTSD have a certain number of these symptoms. One is hypervigilance, and what you would see in a child like this is they're just never safe. They're constantly scanning for what's going to come next. Their brain has just been trained that way. Hyperarousal, flashbacks if there are specific events that happened. Depression, which is that hypoarousal, so it's not so much the biological depression part, but the effort to suppress the hyperarousal. I guess the flip side of the hyperarousal, that hypoarousal, and numbness. What you'll see in children often is, I just saw one of these a couple of weeks ago, is repetitive play over and over and over, and it's called traumatic play. And sometimes it has the elements of the trauma that they're trying to work out in their brain, but sometimes they are dissociated, and that's a word not everybody knows, but people with PTSD flip into other states of mind. If you want to be real simple, there's the fight part and the escape part, and a freeze, which is just immobilization. And then the other two that we work with the trauma therapy that I was involved in is a submit, which is it's a survival strategy of submitting in order to save yourself.
Sure. Right?
And then the one that we see in the adopted orphans and stuff is some attached, the word that they use is the attached part, but it's a part that might cry or be whiny or overly compliant. You even see this in adults when they get triggered, they'll go into this as a way to keep themselves safe. They are charming and ingratiating to adults, but it's not their true self. These are all just survival parts of themselves. So you might have a part of them that goes to school or can function in all these ways, but when their trauma brain gets triggered, they go into one of these, and it's different for different kids. So, in terms of behavior, the fight part is probably what you would see. Right. You don't worry so much if a kid is constantly submitting, except you might if you were me. Because you want a little fight, right?
I do.
It's not healthy not to have some fight, so it's just an overly used, automatic, and it's actually just it's a division in the self. It's a separate state of mind. So they're not thinking the way they do in their normal state of mind. It's a survival state of mind. I don't want to go too much into all that.
And therefore, reasoning gets affected then too, though, because you can't really reason through them at times in those states.
No.
So you have to identify when those are happening and when I should talk to them about what.
Well,
basically,
they have to get back into the window
Yeah.
before you can solve any problems, or even to develop that reflective ability. We were talking about your daughter starting to develop.
Right.
You can't do that processing with them until after they're back into that window, either coming up from the numbness or coming down to that hyperarousal, getting through the shame attack that they had because of their hyperarousal.
Right. So they're upset because they got upset.
That's another brain, the shame brain.
It is.
I used to have all these rocks in my office.
In your stuff to give them, did you do all 4 levels now? So when they redid PTSD in the DSM in 15, they did all 4 levels where you can experience the trauma personally. you can hear about a traumatic event
The
happening.
vicarious trauma.
The vicarious, but all four of those, all they have to have is one of those four to be diagnosed with PTSD now, and there is no more PTSD at all. It's just D.
Yeah.
And you have to meet those. I thought those were really interesting, but it just so you guys know, and then they talked about the long-term one. It comes out 20 years after it happens
Right,
too.
the developmental trauma.
And then the third one was, so
We never got that one in the developmental trauma, never got
No, my newest referral is two EMTs, mom and dad,
Yeah.
are talking about what's happened to them, and the 7-year-old's hearing it. And the 7-year-old's coming in as a trauma-informed kid, because he's listening to mom and dad, they think he's asleep.
Well, not even listening, Shauna. Their nervous systems
Yeah,
are
you can sense
traumatized, so the child is being raised by somebody with cortisol in their blood.
Two.
So the mirror neurons are, the world is not a safe
Mirroring them.
place. The 7-year-old is, oh, my parent doesn't think it's a safe place. Well, I'm sure not gonna think it's a safe place if you don't think it's a safe place. So that's how it gets transmitted. It doesn't have to be the
Yep.
stories even.
Yep,
It's at that sort of,
neurological.
right, neurological attunement. You know, if
Yeah.
you love somebody, then you know how they're feeling. And sometimes knowing how they're feeling is kind of traumatizing for you.
I don't want to take you off that, I just thought that was
Yeah.
really interesting and new, I mean, kind of new in the field of, wow, only one of these four, and then two in the next category, and then, you know, so watching the movie It when they shouldn't. And they all think they're gonna get sucked into the brains.
I can't tell you how many
Wow.
kids I've had to work with.
You know how many social stories I've written about
They
It?
watched Chucky because the older brother was home babysitting,
Yeah.
and the kid
Yeah.
was supposed
The
to be in
18-year-old
bed, but,
was, but they watched it, and then you write a story to help them through the trauma,
oh my God,
or,
you probably didn't deal with him. Oh, this kid, I think he had childhood bipolar, it's very rare,
oh,
but,
wow.
but he also had that. And so his psychosis was getting interwoven with this trauma stuff. It was,
all the time.
he
You wouldn't
called
know
me
that
for
you're gonna
years
be-
after they moved to Michigan to get better services.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so impulsivity can be a symptom. Misperception of other people's intentions.
Oh, yeah.
So it can be very confusing if he says, you're hurting me, or you're being mean to me, and you're going like, what?
Nothing's happening, or I'm
Yeah.
holding you in, or you're staying in the chair, but you're not touching them.
So just realize that's in the trauma brain, that's coming from that point of view of the world.
Right.
It doesn't mean it's true.
How about you wouldn't care if I were dead?
Yep.
I should just kill myself. I mean, those that moms cannot ignore at that point, but really they're in that brain state where they're not talking, you know what I mean?
Any
You're not
sense.
in a window.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh wait, oh, wait. I mean, seriously, that's a tough one.
Well, you
It's a
combine
tough
that
one
with
to-
impulsivity,
Yeah,
and it's not
You get a lot of
good. We were just talking about suicide on the break. That
Yeah.
was our little activity here.
it's like hard.
Reactivity, distrust, and self-doubt.
Yeah.
Not being able to, you can't trust anybody else, but you also can't trust yourself. Issues, and these are just the 4 things I always used in my trauma therapy, is safety, control, because PTSD comes from feeling powerless. If there's one thing you need to know, it's that, the feeling of being ineffective, unable to do anything about it. Blame, which is responsibility. Lots, like sexual abuse survivors will think that they caused it, that they're to blame for that, taking responsibility or feeling guilty about it. And then the shame. I'm bad, I'm worthless, I don't deserve to be loved. There are all these belief systems that go along with each of these things.
So if you're a respite provider and you hear that stuff from an older kid, that's where, you know, mainline communication with parents is really important. And telling them what you heard, and then understanding, what do I give attention to, what do I, you know, make a mental note of, what do I share, you know, those kind of things, right?
And the skill here, we're gonna get into skills pretty soon, is to both have empathy that the child feels that way and is thinking those thoughts, and then to say, this is the way I see it, to give that other perspective, instead of invalidating the child's perspective,
Right,
which is not gonna get you anywhere.
right,
You wanna validate what they're experiencing, feeling, and thinking, but also offer some alternatives,
Right.
ways to look at that situation.
I think you're ready for skills. Because we've talked about
Yeah.
hyper perseveration around,
Oh,
right?
we didn't talk about it. I mentioned the word, but.
Okay, so rock
This is a
brain.
very important one.
It is a very important one. These are my FMs, the flexible moments. Gina will say them differently. The fixations, hyper-perseveration. These walls are not white, they're taupe. I'm just telling you that right now. They're taupe, Shauna, they're taupe, they're taupe, they're taupe. You're right, I need to go back to color school. Thanks for helping me out there. That's what you do to dissolve that situation. That is, and the kids laugh and they go, oh, like what hill am I gonna die on here? How flexible can I make them?
How flexible are you?
How can I eat? What else can I eat? And I'm fine with it, you know? And
You need to have those be white, fine.
And so this is where people get stuck on something, an activity they participate in. They have to do it at 2:22. This is where the flexible moment comes in because you're driving across traffic in this town, right? You don't get there until 2:24. We're late, we can't go, we're done. I mean, that's how quick this house of cards falls, and you guys all know what I'm talking about here. So make sure to say, we could be there at 2:22, we could be there at 2:24, we might be there at 2:23. Can you please write down when we get there so we know about when we should be there? That kind of thing, give them some power to come into it, let them know. Transitioning people from one place to another. I often have a transitional item. If I'm a respite provider and we're at a park somewhere and I want them to go back to the car and they want to stay in the park, that'll be synonymous with recess at a school. I might have an item that clearly lives in my car, like my pack of gum. And I might have that individual, A, have a piece of gum with me if that's allowed, and B, can you please make sure this gets back to the car? I needed to go to the car, we need to be at the car by 2:59 to get you home on time in this lovely traffic we have now. So will you watch your clock or your watch for me to help me know when?
Put them in charge. We call it giving them the clipboard.
Exactly.
Some of those
part of the whole.
Clipboard.
Yeah, a part of the whole. They get to be part of it and they get to help you through it. And those rock brain moments, just so you know what rock brain is, Superflex characters, there's 14 of them that are bad guys. There's rock brain, I mean, one-sided Sid, all these, I won't list all 14. They have their alter egos. So rock brain's person that comes in and helps them is a man named Rex Flexinator, or a neutrally gendered person named Rex Flexinator, because it can be either way. And so rock brain gets covered by Rex Flexinator. So with my little kids, actually all the way up to, they use this, Tanya Shankwater uses this in high school too for zones and different things to let, it's a rock brain moment. We talk about it as adults all the time. I was stubborn, I was too stubborn, I didn't have enough flexibility. So I will simply look at my 5th graders and say, Rex Flexinator needs to get in this car right now. Come on, Rex, where are we letting him in? The window or the air vent? Turn the air on high. We need him to sneak through to us. And I mean, that's funny, they laugh.
Playful.
It's playful, it is play, it's fun for them, and then they tell their parents they came through the window, and they're like, who came through the window? Just remember that it's really, those fixations to them are their sense of control, and if you can make light of it, I love distraction, I all the time say, oh my word, the sky looks purple to me, and then they correct my color, and then we move on from whatever's going on in that moment. These are all within those windows that we've talked about. You can even cheat it a little bit here, but you can't do it when they're here. Does that make sense? It's just better to cut your loss, be quiet, and sit and wait for that person. So you talked about echo and how much our kids with sensory stuff love. The hoot owl thing was at the Museum of the Rockies one day. I had a little guy with autism who was nonverbal, and I had him at the front door, and I thought this could be so cool for him because I bet you he'll hear the hoot owl thing the second we go. Nobody heard the baby crocodiles they had at the clear back of the museum in water and started. Water's his favorite thing in the world. He loves taking baths. He loves going in the. So he starts taking his pants off at the front door of the museum, and I'm like, oh! And then he's on a dead sprint, and I can't catch him. And this was a respite moment. I was out trying to figure out what we were going to do to get him through the hoot owl thing. Totally had my mind in one area. Ran to the back. Thank God the baby crocodile's mouths were taped. Had his toe in the water when I grabbed him. So, people ask me all the time, do you sit in a chair right there in front of the thing he loves most, which is swimming crocodiles, or do you leave with the child over your shoulder? That was a physical escort out because I knew there was no good coming from this. And I left and I said, we are walking green zone body, and I've got this kid around me, and I get him out to, I was alone, get him out to the car, and I just wasn't quick enough to stay on top of it, or I wouldn't have let him get that far in the museum. But I also was really interested at that point in what he was hearing. He was stuck. He was very stuck. And to do the tantrum right there in front of the tub, and the baby crocodile swimming around, too much, too unfair, too right in the moment of the thing I want the most. So I just said, we'll get to the car, crank the music. That's it, the hyper-perseveration. If I would have gone back into the museum, I told his mom, they went back. They had a water toy with him. They said the baby crocodiles will be here, but we're gonna go watch the hoot owls. Dad got in front, Mom went sideways, because he still wanted to go right back to that spot. And then they moved away shortly thereafter. They're in Billings now, but I will never forget that. He was so stuck because he heard the water. I had another girl walk in the pond
Stimulus for
this time of year, and we had to.
Stimulus that triggered the whole.
Exactly. So it's really tough. If you can get ahead of it, great. If you can write a story after it, great. I did a big empty set through the baby crocodiles. Part of me wanted to say, put your toe in there. We'll unbind one of those. Well, some of them didn't have the mouth wrap on them yet, and I mean, it would have been an immediate. But then the trauma with the I don't like water and the
Losing a toe.
losing a toe. And I take a class without a toe. Wait, it's 10 and 10.
This is not where they get a natural consequence.
Anyway, yes, no, it's not. But that is, kind of that whatever they love the most, they're going to go ahead. I had a girl walk across a pond that was still water just like last week and go in it.
Oh.
And because she loves water so much, and teaching that discrimination between, they get rock brain in, I'm going in the water, or hyper perseverated on it, but then teaching the discrimination of safety is tough for them right then, right? Like, I can't do water here, it's too cold. And remember, their systems aren't the same, and this is whatever we're talking about, so they're not feeling the cold the way we are. Tell the frostbite, they're not feeling uncomfortable, they're feeling pretty okay because it's water. It's colder than they thought, but I have kids who turn on a pure cold shower, and we turn it over to warm, but they don't love that. They would still do pure cold shower if they could every day. So their vestibular system is goofy there, and their system is so.
Another thing, they don't have a healthy sense of stranger danger, so.
Yeah, that's the other rock brain thing.
Yeah.
I love this person's hair, I love their long dangly necklaces, let me go. And so that's a stranger, and you kind of have to teach that, even though we're in a kind place and what have you, but that is another. Do you want to add to that? This was just 2 slides of activities that are calming and alerting to helpless sensory that I wanted to give you, but.
Sure.
Do you want to add on that, Guy? Okay.
Well, I brought a bunch of stuff, but we don't have time for all that other stuff. So. That's a whole workshop of its own.
Well, these are a bunch of, Tina and I kind of collectively, she started low and slow,
Oh, I've added some to
slow
that
your
list,
roll.
too.
How big of a problem? I love the zones 5-point scale. I gave that to you, it's right here. I'm sure you guys have used this, I love it.
Go ahead and do that one.
Okay, so it's just literally, I tell all my kids that if it's emergency room and blood, it's a 5. So they don't have a shoelace through the right eyelet in their shoe. I can't. Is it a 5? Emergency room or blood? No. Then it doesn't warrant a 5 reaction. Okay. And we save it for, and you can use whatever you want with, you may not want to say emergency and blood, I don't want to scare them. But typically our kids know shots, that kind of stuff, doctor involved. But it's all about how the reaction should fit the crime, match the problem. Does that make sense? So I have 14-year-olds where I'll go, 5, I need you. That's a 5 right now, we way overreacted to that. I need you at 1, but we've been working on this. She looked like, what? We've been working on it for 5 years. But knowing that if they were here doing a volunteer activity, or if they were getting, a respite thing that they knew about the 5-1 or the 5-4 or this chart. There's some of my teachers I consult with have that up in their room. There's a whole bulletin board they can do of it, etc. So it's a big one, and knock it down. What do you feel? Well, I feel like it's a 4, but you're going to tell me it's a 2. Okay, then we're in the realm of normalcy now. I know you're going to tell me it's a 2. I love this thing, and it is not being able to chew gum during math class, right? My teacher told me to stop doodling. And I decided to rip up my math page, throw it at her, and punch the kid on my way out. Where
I know
it's a
that.
5, right? What are we talking about right now?
Just let him doodle,
Right, exactly.
because he learns better doodling.
Well, and a lot of kids can, and some of them are using it to escape. So it's like this, you gotta figure it out. But that is what I use that for. That's, you guys, under zones of regulation, if you hit images online, all of them, the toolbox comes up, all of it. I have the manual, it's $44. On social thinking, comes with a DVD where you can print your own. I absolutely love that thing.
But again,
And
as a
use it.
respite provider, if she's using the zones of regulation, she's going to give you what strategies they're using with their kid.
Within it.
And so,
Yep.
hopefully, I mean, there may be families, especially once we get our grants and we have subsidized respite, which is my goal, that don't have the opportunity to learn as much as other parents learn, and that where the respite provider might actually be one of their teachers on
Totally.
some of this, that might happen.
Yep.
So,
that's what the, how big of a problem zones 5-point scale, that's what that is. Collaborative problem solving, pulling one another together to talk about.
wait, I have a whole thing on that. Why are you jumping so fast?
Well, no, it was before it. See, I went to that. You said go ahead and talk about that, so I was going back to you. Because you have a thing on low and slow, collaborative.
And I gave that to you. I will give you the short version of it, but then you can read the handout. It's about, this, we talked about this all day, about slowing, when a kid is speeding up, you're actually slowing down. So you're doing the opposite of what might be what you would do it if you were doing it mindlessly. If you're doing it mindfully, you're slowing down, you get low, because this,
that's not good, ever. Get on their same level.
especially you.
I know, it's always helped me. It's helped me in bad situations, and I've gone low as quickly as possible, and I hold a buffer. I hold like a therapy ball if a kid's taller than me and coming at me, because I also don't want to ever be in the situation where, exactly.
Yeah,
So-
and you've got to know your person, but
I
if
always
there's anxiety or there's fear or there's this powerlessness, this is an automatic animal reaction of me having more power than you, just because I'm bigger than you.
Yep.
So getting really
Same.
low is really literally low, and using your voice to slow down your voice, your tone of voice, the softness of your facial expression, where, you know, you might not be aware that you're...
I do an eyebrow lift, that's why I have all these wrinkles. Every time something goes down, I'm like this. Okay, I'll help. Yep, I'm right here. Like I'm wide awake. I'm calm, but I'm wide awake. That's why I have all these. I'm not kidding. I've done that from day one. Like, why do you look so neutral right now with the chair going through the wall? I'm like, I'm waiting. I'm waiting. My wrinkles are. Anyway.
You do not want to contribute to the cycle,
The escalation.
the escalation cycle. So you're kind of coming down like this at the same time that they might be going up, and you're trying to help them come into your state of mind.
I'm glad you brought up the body position because that's massive in my world, and I do not put
And
it
there are some
in this.
teachers, I say, you need to stand up.
Kat, get up right now. Are you kidding me?
Well, there are times when you can use
Oh,
that
sure.
appropriately.
If they're not too far gone and they listen, then you haven't overused it.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and it really depends on who you're working with.
Yep.
Sometimes a kid needs to know that you're bigger than them.
I'm telling you, I think that's helped me more than anything else in that, like
Yeah.
residential type. You know, I'll help you. I'm right here. Low and slow, eyebrows up, but also size.
Well, and in certain behavioral problems, having your voice get firmer,
You may stop.
right?
That's where it gets.
Really assertive and authoritative
I will
and
help.
firm. You gotta just know your
Yeah.
person, but, so I've given you a hand up on that, so. How big of a problem, we did that already?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Collaborative problem
Okay.
solving is you.
I wrote some stuff down. You know, I don't know how much of a chance you'll get to use this, but, it's important.
Super important.
So I'm just gonna go through the steps. It's a whole program that got developed by the psychologist who felt like, it was backwards how the schools were handling behavior. And so he developed this of finding out, I didn't bring all this material, but finding out what the underlying problem was that's leading to, it comes from work around oppositional defiant disorder types of behaviors. and trying to figure out where that comes from. Sometimes it comes from language problems, communication problems. Sometimes it comes from sensory problems. Sometimes it's emotional. I mean, there are all kinds of reasons that you might look at that tip. It's the quintessential tip of the iceberg. You see the oppositional behavior. If you don't know how it got there, then you can't really design a treatment for it. But what these steps do is build those skills. So the first step is the empathy. You didn't have a popsicle, right?
Right, so I'm really sad about that. I want a popsicle now.
Yeah. And so now you're not gonna go to bed, right?
I'm not going to bed at all till I have a popsicle. Give me a popsicle, Mom.
Yeah. So my empathy would be, you really want a popsicle. I get that.
Now,
Yeah, you really want that. I'm just acknowledging and communicating the understanding. The second is, what's the problem? And when I used to teach this, I just say, this is the problem. We're both looking at it. You want a popsicle, right? I mean,
Right.
that's the problem, right?
I want a popsicle.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. And I know that sugar makes you crazy.
Well, I want to go to bed crazy. That's what they'd
Yeah.
say. Yeah, I mean, you're smart kids. Be like,
Yeah.
I want to go to bed sugared up because then I won't sleep all night.
So,
Get up and get on the internet when you're
Yeah.
not looking.
so your problem is that there are kids, by the way, that have terrible sugar craving, addiction issues.
It's called the opiate addiction too, isn't it?
It's all tied up.
We were going to talk about blood sugar and again. Especially when I go to lunch, you should see it's crazy. Anyone watch it? Anyway, so I want a popsicle now, and I know it makes me sugary and crazy. That's why I want it.
And sometimes you can eat a popsicle and it doesn't make you crazy, huh?
When can I do that?
Do you remember or not?
Usually in the morning. It helps me get with energy.
Eating a popsicle?
Mm-hmm.
I noticed, okay, we're doing the collaborative problem solving now. I noticed that after you have a big dinner, you can eat a popsicle and you're fine.
Oh, I don't want to wait that long. One in the morning for breakfast. But I'll go to bed if we do that.
So you say,
That's
well,
perfect.
you can have a popsicle at this time,
But
but right now, when it's 5 o'clock in the evening, do you remember yesterday how
Right.
you got your own popsicle?
well, and they want to be high sometimes. It's like telling a person with bipolar to
Addiction.
come off the manic high. So they want that right then. You know what I would
They're
add?
having low blood sugar, so then they want the sugar.
Exactly. They crave it and then they need it, and then that's when I get a pediatric nutritionist involved. But what you were just talking about, the only thing I'd add to her collaborative back and forth, you guys, is I always write a note. My brain's getting old. So let me write down right here, when did we decide on your popsicle? When were you going to have it again? Was it after breakfast or dinner? Because now I don't
The
care as
agreement,
long as they go to bed. So we write the agreement on a sticky note. I'm going to put it right. Should I put it on Mom's mirror or where does this go? And so it reminds me to do the popsicle first thing in the morning, and then you follow through like the Dickens. Yeah, you get up in the morning, you go, maybe they'll forget they went to bed, but you follow through like the Dickens. So if your respite provider's out and they're negotiating on gum before dinner or after, it's important that then they communicate to Mom or Dad. We told them that it would be fine. We didn't have any gum with us, but I wrote a note saying, I remember I can have gum after dinner. And that's like validation for that person right
Put
then.
it right up on the dashboard,
Yep,
so
so
that
they
when we
can
get home,
see
we
it.
can hand it to
Take
them.
your note, go give it to Mom. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the kid won't forget.
Oh, God, Lord, no, we'll forget before they will, for
These
sure.
kids some of them are amazing negotiators. Oh my
Yes.
But it communicates my respect for the child's ability
Yep.
to kind of think
Yep.
this through and to nurture that remembering from yesterday.
Absolutely.
It's
a good
and what did we do last time, and what do you think would work, and of those choices, having one right now is not gonna work for me, so maybe
Yep.
we could find another one, because
Yep.
I know what happened yesterday. We did that.
The other thing I do a ton, just if you want to tag onto this, is their popsicles are closed right now. I'll talk to, they can be open again tomorrow. What time tomorrow? And I'll just say they're closed. And then I do the tell, re-ask, and retell. Are they open or closed right now? Closed. Why are they closed, Shauna? I mean, whatever.
Well, and that's more the limit setting.
It is the limit setting.
Yeah.
That's more than the collaborative problem solving. But if you have to tag into that, Sometimes it makes a difference between 8 hours sleep and 2.
So he talks about 3 different plan A, Plan B, Plan C.
Yep.
Plan A is the kid is running in the street, you're just grabbing the kid. There's a safety issue or something, so it's not a discussion. Plan B is this kind of
Back and forth,
building their, thinking skills about it. And Plan C is the adult decides they don't really care about obstacles anymore because there's bigger fish to fry.
Got it. That's
So
funny.
they just drop that particular expectation.
And we go to something else, or what do they
Well,
do?
they just have priorities for different goals,
Got it.
like.
That all makes
Yeah.
sense to me.
Yeah.
I've never heard that description of it though. That's great.
Okay. What else do we have?
Power struggles by yourself or with help works sometimes, but it usually means a physical escort. You choose or I'll choose for you works a lot of the times. Choice type things like that. The limits with the it's closed right now. It's closed, but this is open.
Yes,
So you're
anytime you
validating.
can offer the choice.
Yep.
I think you also, the validation goes a long ways too, to say, you want this,
I
and
know you want this, right? Those are
these
not
are the
available
choices.
right now.
Yeah, these are the choices.
Yep. Do you want to still choose, or do you want me to choose for you? And that's when they'll usually go,
Yeah.
I'll choose.
There's sort of a continuum. If they don't respond to the choices, then you say with my help.
Right, exactly. Well, and it's funny because we're talking about all these different verbal things, and then I say short and sweet verbal instruction. So it really does depend on, sometimes it's just gesturing, right? We're headed to the car, where are we going? And you point to the car and they answer for you. Yeah, exactly. And then
The choices with cards though too, right?
Yep, absolutely. And the timing is massive. I don't know how to ever give someone timing that doesn't kind of have already an instinct to have it. And I feel like everyone in this room has an instinct to have it, but it's the kind of thing, remember the preschooler has the coat over the head flinging, and you say right arm or left arm, you choose or I'll choose for you. Right as I say limit verbal, but it's so fast they don't even realize, and you didn't say put the coat down now. You didn't get in a power struggle with them. You're allowing them to, I'll help you, oh my goodness, which hand's gonna slide through next? That kind of thing. And it's so fast and so redirected, they don't even realize that they've been redirected. Easier said than done. I have no idea, other than 30 years of doing this, why it happens so fast sometimes. Think about something you can say to change the trajectory. Yep. Do a little detour and pique their interest and cognition with it. And they'll correct you when you're wrong. They'll say, no, it was not that. It was a dark blue, navy, blue. And I'm like, okay, yeah, absolutely. Whatever that is. And then you don't worry about the power and control piece. I have a lady I work with right now, and she cannot work with kids who have opinions really at all. So I'm not sure where she's going because they all seem to have opinions. And I mean, every single thing she has to correct them on. I think she's got something she's going through. And that kind of person cannot. I had a little girl tell her she would listen when she talked to her in the green zone. My little kid is telling the teacher, I'll know you're ready when you talk to me in the green zone. The teacher was like, fuming, and I'm like,
My daughter
either
told
retire or go to work somewhere else.
My daughter told her high school teacher that she would respect him as soon as he respected her.
So that's one thing we didn't put anywhere in this is you are subject to the plan rules too. If you're a respite provider with a kid and you're working on flicking out their cursing words and they're a high schooler and they've gotten attention for cursing and you're going to do the replacement of flicking. If you sit there and curse with them, right, be ready for everything you've just tried to teach, undermining the whole thing. We are subject to the rules too. So if you're in a position where you feel like you can't do what you've been asked to do, then you have a different person you provide for, or you just remember that you're subject to those rules too.
Well, and we all have particular behaviors
Sure
or
we do.
kids that we can't
Yep.
connect with, or, I happen to be a very preschool-oriented person.
Right, you like the littles, right. I like them all. Because they all have a different challenge with them. Aggression and self-injury, Tina felt like this was really important. I know you're gonna get to your stuff too. With the aggression, I feel like because we talked about the window earlier, we've talked a lot about this. I find something they can stomp on, something they can hit. Here's my catchphrase all the time. Nothing with heartbeats. You may choose anything that does not have a heartbeat right now, and they often do, because that piques their interest, and it's not, no, don't do this, it's nothing with heartbeats. Do we ever aggress towards anything with heartbeats? And the answer with that is always no, isn't it? No matter what we do, that's always a no. Stay calm, eyebrows up, think of positive replacement behaviors that can be done. So if they're kicking or hitting, you say, where's our stomping station? Where's our kicking station? They make those lovely gel tiles that I love a ton. I would highly recommend those at home. They're about 2 feet by 2 feet, and you step on them and they squish water everywhere. That's your stomping station, the jelly colored water. We have one in our office. All kinds of sensory things can be done like that. Another favorite trick is pulling out the stuffing.
What are they called?
They're called, like, if you put gel tiles in on Amazon, you'll see them. They have them at Rocky Mountain Toy Company. They're cheaper elsewhere, but they do have them there. 2 feet by 2 feet, they have like watery jelly stuff in them. And so if you're gonna stomp in here, that's fine, but it's on the stomping station.
Right.
We sometimes mount a bullseye on top of it. The other one I love is, I love the big Joe chairs that we have all over for college kids coming back. They're like big beanbag chairs. I'll pull some of the stuffing out of one of them, like I'll get 2, pull the stuffing out of one, and these could be, you know, if you're working respite in a home, I put either rice or popcorn in one, so one's heavyweight and can go over the kid, and the kid can sit in one of them, calm down that way. I hold them in my office if I have a kid who's aggressing and he's coming at me. I put it between me and the kid, and I say, I'll wait for you, and stay sitting if I feel comfortable with who the kid is. I had a kid who came in with a tube sock full of rocks the other day, and I said, we'll leave that outside, we'll check in outside. We'll play with it again as we leave, because I have glass all over in my window, and I said, that's closed right now, because I could just see him, when we got inside. Yeah, we won't use that today. Soccer rocks, I was like, we'll leave the soccer rock, it's closed, that's exactly what I said. So it was weight, and I said, I have other things you can put weight on with, and all this, and it was shock value. He's a ED, he's looking at me going, what's she gonna do with my soccer rocks? It's closed today. And you just act like it's not even your, you know, saying the next whatever. Nothing's bothering you. Neutrality's huge. Staying neutral's huge. But you hardly can bite. I had a kid eat a light bulb one day because he wasn't sure what he could do to get my attention. Well, I did her. I just said, I will help you, and I removed the stem of the light bulb as these. Anyway, yeah.
Very calmly walked him out and said,
I did. I said, we'll go to the hospital. I had a kiddo eat magnetics, the whole thing. To get stomach surgery. Mom was in the shower for the 5 minutes she got to be in the shower. He ate the magnetic set that builds. So. And these are often the kids that are having aggression and self-injury because they have kind of extreme needs. And pica, they put everything in their mouths, so we have certain mouth items that are okay for in their mouth, lick windowsills, you know, eat rocks, things like that. So you gotta, whatever the behavior is, you gotta figure out a decent Pop Rocks was a great replacement for the eating rocks. The light bulb Pop Rocks work too. I had a little guy who popped out his prosthetic eye.
Light bulbs work good.
Light bulbs don't, just anything that's hard and crunchy. Ice worked for the light bulb too. But more it was for shock. It was, did you see me just do this? I'm gonna crack it and eat it. And I'm like, that. So think about what they can do. Think always, you guys, about a buffer between you and the individual if you need it. I love, they've got like 4-foot crash pads on Amazon that have handles on them right here, and I'll say, oh, I need a little weight across my legs if I'm working with a kid that's more behaviorally based, or I'll be on a therapy ball, and all I have in there for options are therapy balls, so the chairs can't go through the windows, that kind of stuff. I don't think you're seeing a ton of this, but this could be someone that does respite for, and I love this kind of stuff. In high school, I loved it too, and just watching that kiddo come around and not need aggression to make them feel better.
So if you're meeting with your parent, and the parent says, oh, he's got a lot of aggression problems, you want to ask a lot of questions.
Sure.
You
want to find
know
out what they are.
Because there's a lot of
Physical.
liability involved with this as well. And I know way back in the day, when I was training one of those mentors, it was not safe for her to take him out to a park.
No.
it was not safe, and he attacked her, and she was unequipped to deal with that. And I said, don't take him anywhere until you can
you've
do it
developed
very
that.
desensitization, and maybe
Exactly.
take him out to the parking lot and you bring him back again.
That's
Or,
exactly.
you know, you have to gradually build on that, but just be really clear about where your boundaries are too, of how to build up, because the relationship has to build, the trust has to build,
Right.
your authority with that child has to build.
How to go in the
That
car.
all has to happen before you're
Yep.
going anywhere.
Yep. So the third one is kind of an OT trick. Weight on the individual. What I mean is a backpack, runner's vest with weight placards in it, something like that. The second you put weight on that kid, out at
We're not allowed a Head Start unless it's
No.
prescribed.
But we totally could as a prescriptive piece of this.
Right.
But you can put like weight on a child as you're walking. They get, especially if they seek deep input, they get a lot more input. Think about, barn activities they get a lot more input in doing it, and they also know where their body is in space more. They're way less likely to run. They're way less likely to leave you because you've grounded them
It's
physically.
regulating.
And it's regulating to them. They often love it. So I'll say purple or red, or we have a couple at the home, and we filled them full of old library books. I don't know what's in them. I use my husband's 2XL vest with weights sewn in them.
Yeah, you can put them in the hem of a jacket too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Drop the
But
metal
it's-
balls in there.
The best kind of weight is like almost, we're all women in here, like if you're getting a check at the hospital, the leaded vest they put over you if they take your, if they take
The
your
dentist?
dentist x-rays, that kind of weight where it's on your shoulders and then across you too versus just in certain areas, right? So it's deep and it's all encompassing. You can do compression garments under a kid and do the same thing, and they can wear those all day. The weighted vests need to come off after about 25 minutes. A time in the park would be perfect for that. Don't be a hero thinking you're going to teach them a new lesson. Parents have had them for 15 years, they're unsuccessful, so I'm going to show them. That's important for the respite provider. They might think they know it all, they might have had a lot of experience with a lot of different kind of behaviors, and so they're like, I'll do it where no one else can. Just get that out of your head. You're part of a team and you're working together, because that is a big one. Yeah.
It's a totally different problem. I know two different people who I would say don't have social boundaries. Like they're very touchy, very feely, maybe almost inappropriate, almost like stimming behavior.
Sure.
Maybe almost even sexual behavior. And how would you deal with that?
I would have them touch and feel something that's on them. I
Okay.
had a kid who was smelling the napes of girls' necks in high school and then feeling their straight hair. And so I got us hair swatches from a salon from a color that the lady was never going to use in a million years. There happens to be a salon right next to my office. I'm like, do you have any colors that you know no one's ever going to want and you don't have the color codes for it? She's like, yeah, here. So she gave me them. It's the soft hair because that's the sensory piece. And I sprayed it with like the Axe body spray or whatever the world the high school smelled like. And then this kid put it on his key ring and he would smell that and feel that instead of
Okay, and so
actual
you
people.
explain that. You
Yeah.
say that this is not
Dinner replacement.
okay, but this is what you
but this
can
is
do.
okay. And if it's, watch what he or she is touching. If it's hypersexual stuff, I would probably do something sensory based that he could get that would maybe smell like that, a wallet that has a scent,
Okay.
Something like
But
Claire's.
the substitute.
Yeah,
Be
a
really
substitute.
clear that that's not okay.
That it's not okay,
And
that
people
that's too close.
misinterpret that a
They do.
lot.
Yeah.
Right.
Like breast feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with sexuality.
It's the
They're
feeling of
squishy.
the, and that's where the squishies are. Those squishies I love. And there's keychain squishies that you can send and be really close. I have that little Panic Pete doll in my office, the 80s thing that the ears and eyes pop out on. That feels the most like an 18-month-old skin that I've ever felt in my life. So my little kids that are 4 are grabbing their little siblings' arms, because that fat little baby arm, that feeling,
Yeah.
I grab Panic Pete and we squeeze that because that's the replacement. Always try to find replacements that feel and kind of smell, you know, like the same
So not
thing.
denying that need, but explaining a better idea.
And
Yeah.
denying the personal space, because that is important. I always
You
say,
gotta
put
have
your arm out
boundaries.
if you touch me, you're too close, if
that's
if it's
good.
getting to that, yeah. I have a hat with a hula hoop on it, all kinds of personal space things, but that's the easiest one, because you've got it.
It's hard to wear the hat.
Yeah, I wouldn't wear that out in public. That's more a fun thing for 2 or 3 of them and they bump each other, ooh, I was too close, you know. Yeah, my arms are really big, so that's pretty big, but
Yeah.
if you put your arms out, that's about right.
We use with Space Invader.
Yeah,
We use
Space Invader is the Superflex character. I have all those. If you guys want them for your own personal, I've got them all. Do you want to do meds or do you want to do more of the what to do when?
Do you guys need a tutorial on meds? You don't, anybody? No? Okay, we don't.
Okay.
More
So
skills?
transitions?
We haven't even talked about structure yet. Oh, did I give you this, I organized it all? Oh, I organized it all for us.
Okay.
Okay? So,
Well,
under structure,
right. Okay,
do we even have? Oh, we had transitions. They're only a part of it.
yeah,
Structure includes
Schedules.
routine, we talked about ritual,
those are all on there. Routine, ritual,
Plans.
schedule.
what else is about
Schedule induced,
behavior problems.
realistic
Why don't you
expectations.
explain what schedule induced is?
Yeah, behavior that comes about because of the schedule. The kids get so reliant on, sometimes we can overschedule. So we've stressed it, talked about it. We can also overschedule kids. We're falling into our own trap, right? There's not enough flexible moments, if you will. I like question marks in schedules. Every schedule I do has question marks usually, so the kid can to work on that. Schedule induced behavior is behavior happening because of a schedule. After lunch, I always pace, I always stem, I always do this. And so you actually are having a behavior occur because it's in the schedule to happen there, and this is the time I get free time, and you sit down and write your notes. So now I'm gonna go crazy and get a little woo-woo while you work on that, and it becomes schedule-induced behavior to change, either with the changing of the schedule or the expectation at the time for the individual, is how I think of schedule.
Well, and the other thing is like, this was a kid yesterday too, a little girl, she gets into a project and she has to finish
Yeah.
that project. She has to finish that project, but it's time for cleanup
So it's
at
time
the
to,
same time, so there's
the
this,
kid's gonna melt
it's
down.
not on her schedule,
Right,
it's the school's schedule
right,
that is, causing
yep.
the opportunity for
Right.
conflict or whatever.
And we have an undone bin to solve that often, if several
Oh, they've
workouts or
tried
what I
everything.
know.
They've tried all
But
that.
they're not done, that's okay. And they
Yeah.
go in this undone bin and we have 5 minutes to finish them. Just to try to, but your littles,
Yeah.
it's tough.
They've done
I mean,
all
they
that.
basically have a tantrum for it because.
So when you're talking about the schedule induced behavior, is that like even on days off from school at 11:55,
Yep.
they stim, they
Yep.
have to stim, or
Yep.
they have to have free time, or they have
Yep.
to do something?
And that's where it's a pretty big, I mean, it's kind of OCD, right? Like, this is where we gotta be, and we gotta, that's why I like question marks in it. Don't know what's gonna happen today, what? And so then it
For the
breaks
most
it.
part, they can't tell time, but they know what comes after what.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not so much at
what
this time of the
expectation?
day, but after this happens, this is what's supposed to happen.
And if that doesn't
Happen,
happen,
then-
that's an issue.
And that's FMs and question marks for me, because I work with so much of that kind of behavior. It may happen like this, it may not. I don't like it when you say may not, to make sure I'm not told if it will or won't, you know, and then you're cognitively trying to help them through that moment. I've got a kid right now checking the mailbox. Second they order something from Amazon, he checks the mailbox. If it's not there, he throws his iPad across the street. I just wrote the social story last night about how I will not expect something the day after or even the day of me ordering it. If I can't have kind and gentle body going to the mailbox, I won't get to check it anymore. And he really likes to check it, but it's becoming obsessive to him, right? I want to go cut the mailboxes down, but I also want to teach him to do it. He's 6'2", 10", so he's taking mom in a headlock when there's nothing in the mail.
So the routine part of it might
Go.
be that sort of predictability of when the respite provider first comes, they have a little snack together, then they play a game together, then they go to the park.
Yep.
That there be some routine.
Right.
And if ever you deviate from it, some kids do very well if you let them know ahead of time that that's gonna happen. I was like, okay, we're having breakfast now, but I know we usually, go to the park after breakfast today, and this is before you even start breakfast. Today after breakfast, we're gonna do this instead. So sometimes prepping helps.
Sometimes they worry too much about it, and it's better to tell them right in the moment. It's a park day, it's not a park day, that kind of thing, yeah. It just depends on the kid, it really,
We have visual schedules at Head Start with Velcro on
Yep.
the back, so they can change.
Schedule their day and change it on the fly. I love that. That's exactly.
So, like you were saying, warning ahead of time for a transition, clear expectations about this and then this and then that.
I love the if-then scheduler on the iPad, or so first then. So if we're gonna do this first, then we do this, then it moves to like 1, 2, 3, 4 if you want it to, and there's a big old check off when it's done.
Yeah, and they have to have a certain level of cognition to do this.
First and then is like where you start, and then it's, can I add more in?
There is before cause and effect,
Totally.
before being able to predict consequences and, the rituals,
They can be built in and built around the schedule, 'cause
yeah, and what that might look like when you first come might be a high five, whatever,
you're reading.
some kind of little hello ritual and a
Right.
goodbye ritual.
Yep.
What other rituals? The kid might have their own rituals, right? Like,
Yeah, that's
maybe they have to
kind
wash their hands 5 times.
That's what I was thinking about. Like, I have a lot of kids that are anxiety ridden, and they're like, Shauna, I used hand sanitizer 30 times today. And so then my goal therapeutically with them, and the next time I see them a week later, is to use it 5 times a day. When I use the bathroom, when I go to lunch, So we pare down the ritualistic behavior.
Okay, so there are those kind of OCD rituals, but there are also the positive rituals that are just part of the routine.
Right, eating breakfast, getting dressed.
Well, and that greeting rituals and goodbye rituals.
Looking for your bag that you used to bring, that the kids would recognize, your bag of toys.
Yep. And I always say every ending, if it's still a kid that's small enough to hug and that's all appropriate in my office, I'll say high five or hug, and they'll tell you. And they tell me every time. I mean, it's not,
But
that's
if you
my.
forgot that.
They would not like that. Shauna, in fact, they'll remind you, high five or hug. Finger 5, thumb 5, I mean, all kinds of stuff. If I know they don't like hugs, I'll do finger 5 or pointer 5. And then we pick one and roll. Yeah. Those are great ways to create, for sure.
Then we had timing.
Yep, I had timing right back here. Just different from what you have. See, timing's right there. Skills to assist with behavior de-escalation. I went over it in there too.
Okay. And pacing, we had back there. And priming I added, which you were saying sometimes can be too complicated. So it has to be developmental. If you prime them by telling them 10 different things versus, doing it developmentally so they do know in their brains, they're visual, so if they have that laid out.
I love priming and pre-teaching, except my kids that are anxiety ridden, because then they'll worry about it not happening the way you said it was gonna happen.
And then consistency and follow through. You can talk to that, go ahead.
So with consistency, I always look at who is saying this, how are we saying it. That's why I like the by yourself or with help, tell, re-ask, retell, systems that you're using kind of the same, especially when a respite provider were to start. I think then they can kind of branch, but having some consistent language with mom and dad, watching a video of how they do things and ask and interact, watching their timing is really gonna help that kid have more success with someone that's new to them.
And if the iPad is closed, the consistency of not giving in, obviously, everybody in this room knows that, but we're on tape here, so.
Yes.
If there is a rule or a limit that it is the rule, you can empathize, they don't like that, they're frustrated, they wish it were otherwise, but it is there and you don't move it because intermittent reinforcement
Absolutely,
of
and
getting what you
it's-
want by having a tantrum or crying or whatever that behavior, you're just creating a monster by,
allowing it
yeah.
with you. The other thing is I always default to, I haven't talked to your mom and dad about that yet. Let's write that on a sticky note so I can ask them. Let's say the kid's trying to get something from you and you really don't know the answer, you didn't cover it in your training.
The popsicle.
I say, yeah, the popsicle, back to that. I say, I have to talk to them. I don't really know what my rules are. And they're like, you have rules? It's funny because they wrap around that pretty quick. And so you have to be willing to be able, or you could just do the, what'd your mom say? What'd your dad say? But that's gonna get more power struggly, so it depends on your kid, right? But if you say, I have to talk to them, I have not gotten that, I haven't gotten the rule into the Thorgerson house yet, what do you do there? You know, that kind of thing, then they're like, oh, darn it. And they'll wait, because they know you need to talk to them. And
And if
that's,
they knock everything on the floor when they're having a hissy fit, they know they're gonna clean it up.
that's,
You're not gonna pick it up for them.
right, unless they wanted the attention, then you might knock it over for them and, yeah, there's a couple different ways with that, but yes, in general, restitution's good, there are times when it's not,
It's not
so,
possible.
yeah, it's not possible, and it's gonna create so much tension around the item that
They
they,
power struggle.
that then you're gonna have a power struggle every single time through that,
Yeah, I can think of sometimes.
yeah.
In general,
need to-
it's best if you know that if you knock things on the ground or you play with
Sure.
something, that you put it away.
Yep,
Afterwards, so
exactly.
that you don't vary from that.
I'm thinking about a kiddo with Down syndrome who loved the long time with her principal to put everything back together again. And she knew he would make him do that, so she was totally avoiding all academic work by destroying the room and
Yeah.
dumping stuff. And I said, stop, make the work go with, so you go right in the middle of the mess and you sit down with a clipboard and say, here's your map. And she's like, what? I just stuck it everywhere. And then she wanted to clean it up because she wanted it out of the way. Yeah, so it's.
We can't go outside and play. Oh, I was looking
It's
forward to
bummer.
going outside.
It's nap time.
It's so beautiful outside. And
That's
you
what I
have
was
all these
thinking
toys
of.
on the floor.
Right.
Oh, God.
With restitution, I have a ton of stories with that, but, and people always think, we have to restitute, he has to clean up what he just did. I said, yeah, if you wanna make it longer and have way more attention around it, sure. And that's the function, that's what he wants. He wants to not work or whatever that may be.
Avoidance.
Avoidance, yeah, it's the circle.
So what did I do with all those handouts?
I have these three, the Brain Smart Discipline, I've been looking at that because I didn't know what you were working off of all day.
Well,
But
you must have gotten them.
low and slow attitude, you have your masters here.
Oh, that's what
Is that what you're looking for? Okay. Okay. These
Okay,
three
so-
you handed to me.
So
when
look
I-
at effective commands, I think. It
The
just-
Russell Berkeley handout, is that what we're on? Okay.
Yeah, somebody typed that out nice, but then it was on their computer, not mine, so I couldn't.
Oh. Which one is that one, Tina? The
Giving
brain?
effective commands.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, we redid it, so it doesn't
Make
make
sure
sense.
you mean it, I love that.
Yeah,
Also, be physically, I'm gonna add one to this command thing, sorry, we were on number one, I realized, but be physically present. Do not do it from across the room or across the house. If you're really wanting to make a behavior change, be there where you can follow through with it. Don't yell it from across the house.
it says it's number 4.
Oh, good. I would just pair it with, make sure you mean it, be there,
Uh-huh.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
never a question.
I see this constantly, especially new teachers
Oh.
at Head Start.
Do you want to go
Can
to
you?
timeout?
Can you? Okay.
No, I don't wanna go to timeout.
No, can you pick up those words right now? Can you? Can you?
Clean up, right hand or left.
Okay. And then putting okay on, it's just an undermining of.
Because they're gonna say, okay.
Of course, no, it's not okay, I don't wanna do it.
Right,
If you're saying okay, then is it okay with you?
no,
It's not okay with me, I don't wanna pick that.
right, exactly. They usually say the last thing they hear, so clean up, left hand or right hand, and sometimes they're like, no, okay, Miss Shauna, I'll say, I'll beat them to the no, timing wise. So I'm like giving them words I want them to copy me on, okay, like that before you
So
know it.
simply, directly, and in a very business-like tone of
Oh, yeah.
voice, not a tentative. Maybe.
Don't be high at the end of your voice.
Some people are so scared that a
Question.
child won't like them if they set a limit. It's like, come on now.
Yep, one
Uh,
command at a time.
Somebody
They'll
has
love
to
you
be
if
in
you
charge
don't.
here. Don't, not too many commands at once. We've talked about that early. Make sure they have that they're paying attention. Now, some kids find eye contact to be overstimulating, so I'd
I do
say,
physical body. Yeah.
so for some kids, the eye contact is fine,
Yep.
but just being really close so that you know that